Islam. Ye are the children of one father, provided for by his care, and the breast of one mother has given you suck. Let the bonds of affection therefore unite thee with thy brother, that peace and happiness may dwell in thy father's house. And when you separate in the world, remember the relation that bindeth you to love and unity, and prefer not a stranger before thine own blood. If thy brother's in adversity, assist him. If thy sister's in trouble, forsake her not. So shall the fortunes of thy father contribute to the support of his whole race, and his care be continued to you all in your love to each other. At this time, I'd like to recite the Moorish American prayer, the source from which I draw my strength. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation, by night and by day, through his holy prophet, Drew Ali. Amen. First of all, I'd like to rise, walking in Jerusalem, just like John, giving praise to Allah, the author, the creator, the governor of the world, almighty, eternal, and incomprehensible. I'd like to give honor to Allah's holy and illustrious prophet, Noble Drew Ali, because it was he and only he who brought us our nationality, on which will hook us back up with the family of nations. I'd like to give honor to all literature pertaining to Islam in the Moorish Science Temple of America. At this time, I'd like to read from the Moorish Holy Quran. This is the book of the seven seals. In this book, we are taught when it says Jesus go into the wilderness for self-examination, where he overcome these temptations, and then he go back into the camp of John to teach. It tells us that when it says Jesus, take Jesus' name away, put your name there, and say Sister Ill, or Brother Ill, or Sister Bey, or Brother Bey, is going into the wilderness for self-examination. So now when Jesus went into the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights, he went into the wilderness for self-examination. And what does this mean by Jesus going into the wilderness for self-examination? Jesus began to talk to himself. I've been doing that the last few days. I've been talking to myself. I've been questioning myself. I've been going into my literature, and then I sit down and meditate and contemplate on what I've read from the prophet, and then I'm into the wilderness. Because they said Jesus went into the wilderness for self-examination. And he was into the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights. But we know here in the Moorish Science Temple of America, when we talk about the four, we're talking about the four sacred schools of thought. So when Jesus went into the wilderness, he went into the wilderness with four sacred schools of thought. And he began to talk to himself. And he talked to himself. He said, man, my lower self is strong. He said, by many times I'm bound down to carnal life. He said, have I the strength to overcome and give my life a will and sacrifice for men? When I should stand before the face of man and they demand the proof of my messiahship, what would I say? And then the tempter came and said, if you be the Son of Allah, command these stones to turn to bread. And Jesus said, who is it that demands a test? It is no sign that one is Son of Allah because he does a miracle. He said the devil can do mighty things. Did not the Gentile magicians do great things before the Pharaoh? He said, my words and deeds and all the walks of life shall be the proof of my messiahship. Now let me stop here, because we're talking about the devil. And Jesus said that the devil can do mighty things. And you know what? All my life, I've been trying to find the devil. I've been looking for this dude because I wanted to tell him that he was the devil. And I'm looking for somebody that had horns hanging out of his head. And then they told me about a beautiful angel. And they said, when you meet this angel is going to have some wings. And every time I look for an angel, the angel have wings. But I meet brothers and sisters in the Moorish Temple of America, and they are elevating. They are like on Jacob's ladder. And being on Jacob's ladder, every round gets higher and higher. As you overcome, like you was in the first grade, then you went through the second grade, you went through the third grade, you went through the fourth grade, because you are elevating. That's just like Noah's Ark, many cubits high. On Noah's Ark, the cubits high are levels of consciousness. Every round gets higher and higher. So now when we begin to talk about Asiatic, when we begin to talk about being Asiatic Muslim, when you say Asiatic, when you check the records, the whole world was once called Asia. Now there's one race, which is the human race. But this human race is subdivided into two formulations for identification purposes only, which is Asiatic and European. And I'm not European. Right here that I'm reading something here about Asiatic and European, but I want to stop. I want to stop because I just lost my niece, my nephew's wife, beautiful sister, Jackie. When I was in D.C. last time, we took a few pictures. And I was thinking about my mother. And my mother told me one time that 99 won't do. She want 100. And before I get back into my lesson, I want to go into the Psalms. And I want to not give Jackie 99. I want to give her 100 because she ain't going nowhere, because man is not the body nor the soul. He's the spirit and a part of Allah. So, darling, you can always be with us, and I'm joyful that you go on with the Lord. And in the 100th song, I couldn't give you 99, I started to, but I want to give you 100. And 100 says, make a joyful noise unto the Lord, all ye lands. Serve the Lord with gladness. Come before his presence with singing. Know ye that the Lord, he is God. It is he that have made us, and not we ourselves. We are his people and the sheep of his pastures. Entering into his gates with thanksgiving, and into his court with praise. Be thankful unto him and bless his name, for the Lord is good. His mercy is everlasting, and his truth is endured to all generations. So talk to your husband and your daughter and let them know that you are all right. You're sitting on the right hand of God. That is for my niece, one that I love so much. So now let me get back into the Moorish Holy Quran. See, because a lot of times I run into Moorish Americans and they say that they want a Moorish Quran or a Quran. And when I give them this little pamphlet, they don't even pay too much mind to it. They don't even know that it's a Moorish Quran because they're looking for something like this. They're looking for something real big, but you at said this pamphlet. This pamphlet here is greater than any book that I ever read. And I was a man, no telling what I was, but this book is putting me on point. This book is telling me that we have lessons in these books like inconstancy. And because we have a lesson in here on inconstancy, know what you all need to tell us to study inconstancy. Look at yourself. And he's saying constancy is powerful in the heart of man. Intemperance sweat, it wither, it will. So I'm not firm. I'm not fortified because of inconstancy. So Noble Drew Ali, when he came, one thing that he didn't leave out, giving us a lesson called inconstancy. And he gave us a lesson on weakness, because a lot of us is weak because you have two selves. You have a higher self and you have a lower self. Your higher self is the mother of virtues and the harmonies of life. And this higher self breeds justice, mercy, love, and right. And then you have a lower self. And this lower self is the carnal self. It's a body of desires, but it's a reflection of your higher self, but it's distorted by the murky ethers of the flesh. So now Noble Drew Ali gave us another lesson in here. He gave us a lesson, the instructions of unity, the holy instructions of the rich and the poor, and he tells us about Jesus and the Eastern sages and in Persia. And I was thinking about Jesus in Persia the other day. And when I was thinking about the lesson of Jesus in Persia, when I was studying my biblical scripture, see, because here in the Moorish Temple of America, we study the biblical scriptures every day. This is our fountain of youth. This is what connects us back to the great God Allah. You know, the books say, honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be longer upon the earthland which the Lord thy God Allah has given thee. So let's stop here for a minute. Because we're here in the Moorish Temple of America. And here in the Moorish Temple of America, we was given some lessons. We was given some lessons who was our father, and we was given some lessons of who was our mother. And it said that your father is the great God Allah, that who gives you suck. He said the father of the universe, the father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is your protector, he your guide, and he's your salvation. And all this comes through Drew Ali because this is Allah who sent him here. So Allah is the father. He's all of our father. I don't care who you are, where you are, he's the father of the universe. Now we want to talk about the mother. He said, honor your father and honor your mother. Who is your mother? Your mother is Mother Earth. I just talked to a friend of mine, Bo, and Bo was telling me about his mother, and Bo's mother is from Vietnam. See? So he said, honor thy father and thy mother. So he honored his mother. He just said he want to go back to Vietnam. So you and I got to honor our mother. And who is our mother? Man derives his name from the earthland. Chinese are from China. Germans are from Germany. And Vietnamese are from Vietnam. Man today is what his forefathers were yesterday. And there is no one who is able to change man from the decent nature of his mother and father unless his power extends beyond the great universal creator, Allah himself. A man told me that Lynch was a slave name. And I investigated it. And I come to find out that there was a dude named Merrill Lynch. And Merrill Lynch was bullish on America. And then there was another dude I run into. His name was Willie Lynch. And Willie Lynch, and my father knew something about that. Willie Lynch was the guy that showed the people over here how to handle their slaves. So now, if they slaves, because their last name was Lynch. But Noble Drew Ali tell me that Smith, Johnson, Jones, Williams are not slave names. He said the slave names are Negro, colored, and black. Now I have right here with me, I have a copy of my birth certificate. This is a copy of my birth certificate. And my birth certificate says that my father and my mother was Negroes. See, this was before you start calling yourself colored and black. And Drew Ali told me that I can't be a Negro because Negro is a name given to a river in West Africa by Moors because it contained black water. Now let me stop right here before I go to color. Now, we was investigating, this way back in the 70s, man. We was investigating Africa. And we was trying to find this Negro River. And we couldn't find this Negro River nowhere in Africa. And then the sheik started laughing, and he said, go check out Brazil. He said, because Brazil is really a part of West Africa. And when you find those from Brazil, when you look at them, they're going to look just like you. So the Brazilians, Girardi talk about it. He talk about Brazilians, Argentinians, and the natives of San Salvador. So he gives us the wisdom in this Moorish Quran. So the Negro River today is in Brazil. But Brazil is West Africa through the Berlin Conference. So I can't be a Negro because Negro is a river given to a people. And because it contains dirty and stinky and water that nothing will grow in. He said, you're not colored. He said, you're not colored because color is anything that has been painted, stained, varnished, or dyed. And then in a meeting I heard somebody stumble and they tinted too. So we can't be colored and we can't be black. And the bad part about it is we telling our little children that they are black, but when you look at the books, the book is black. If you look at your face, I mean being for real. If you look at your face and if you call yourself black, you're unintelligent. It don't make sense. You are part of the Berlin Conference, and you're part of the slave trade, and you're part of everything that's diametrically opposed to what we have as a people that we're supposed to be displaying to the people. Because when I grew up, and I went to school, and I'm over 70. And my birthday is upon us now, so I'm really over 70 now. And when we went to school, if somebody called you black, it was derogatory. You had to fight. And it's still derogatory. And I'm not gonna call my children black because they're brown. If you would give me a color, I remember they tried to call the Chinese and the Japanese yellow. No, we ain't yellow. We can't accept that yellow because we Chinese. They tried to call the Canaanites red people. No, we can't. Man, they told Lynch-Bey, you Negro, yeah. You colored, yeah. You black, yeah. You Ethiopian, yeah. Whatever the man tell me I am, I'm going to accept it. But man, today is what his forefathers were yesterday. And something transpired with us that never have transpired with anybody else. When Muhammad came, he came to the Arabians. When Jesus came, he came to the Israelites. When Buddha and Confucius came, they came to a people. But when Noble Drew Ali came, man, his work was a little different than anybody else's. But he had to do something that no other prophet had ever done. When Noble Drew Ali came, he had to come through the Negro, he had to come to the colored, and he had to come to the black. And when you come through Negro, colored, and black, these are the slave names. And if you call yourself black, you a slave. If you call yourself Negro, you a slave. If you call yourself white, you a slave, because there's no such thing as a white man. The prophet Noble Drew Ali and the Sheikh used to tell us, don't call the European white, because we are not going to disrespect him. If you call him white, it's disrespectful. They said there was a brother. And there was a couple of them, and one of them was the president, a couple of them got killed. Their last name was Kennedy. And Kennedy and them, they met up with the Reagans. And when they met up with the Reagans, they met up with the Reagans on the St. Patrick's Day parade or celebration. And they had a parade because all of them was Irish. See? And we begin to talk about these different nationalities when you look at the White House, when you look at the council. Each one of those people, you have Russians on the council. See? All of these are part of the brotherhood that enslaved you and me. Because we was a humble people. We were a beautiful people. And then people said, man, look at them dudes over there. We can get them and take over right now. They took over the whole world off our wisdom. They're teaching out of Egypt. And when you talk about Jesus, because when Drew Ali went through the chamber in Egypt, his name was in the pyramid. His date of birth was in the pyramid. See, what we fail to realize, nothing happened by chance or accident. Divine law governs all events. A lot of us study astrology, and we study certain things that come out of Egypt, not knowing that it has a meaning in our life. That's why they talk about astrology right now. My birthday is tomorrow. I'm a Gemini. I come right in. My mother told me as a child that I'm going to have a lot of trouble, because when you talk about Gemini, then you're really dealing with those two forces of the universe, the positive force and the negative force, because the Gemini is one that switched up and changed like the weather. So Jubilee gave us the same lesson too, so that helped me, because I knew that there was two selves. If it ain't for Jubilee, you don't know that there's two selves. You think there's one self, and you just going through what you're going through. So in Egypt, Akhenaten and all these different brothers, I just like Noble Jubilee. He told all the Moors, he said, I want you to go get a good European education. And when you go get a good European education, then I could use you. I can't use you if you don't have a good European education. So we thought about that. And a lot of other brothers thought about it. Some ran to school. Some went to school to be a doctor. Some went to school to be a lawyer. Some went to school to be a mathematician. And the other brother over here was a bank robber. And he went to jail for being a bank robber. So all of them come together. They come to the temple. He got out. And one brother, Prophet, I went to school to be a doctor. You could use me now. He said, praise Allah. The other brother, Prophet, I went to school to be a lawyer and a mathematician. Now you could use me. And the other brother said, yeah, Prophet. Man, I went to the penitentiary, man. I ain't go to school. I went to the penitentiary because I was jumping over them counters. I was taking that money. And the prophet said, oh, yeah? He said, yeah. He said, so now I done changed my ways. He said, you could use me now, prophet. And the prophet took the brother that had been to the penitentiary. And the reason why he took the brother that had been to the penitentiary, because he changed his evil ways. Because the book said if you don't change from your evil ways, Allah will change from you. And he told the brother that went to school to be the doctor and the mathematician, he said, have you ever heard of Imhotep? He said, no, prophet. He said, I told you to study it. He said, have you ever heard of Akhenaten? He said, no, prophet. I never heard of Akhenaten. He said, well, once you come in the chamber, you will know who Akhenaten and those brothers are, because when you begin to talk about medicine, and when you begin to talk about all these different arts and science, it comes from Imhotep. It comes from Akhenaten. It comes out of Egypt. So if I tell you to go to get a good European education, I'm not telling you to become a mathematician, because that's not European. I'm not telling you to become a doctor, because that's not European. All that come out of Egypt. But when we talk about European, we're talking about a thought pattern, because the whole world was called Asia. And that brother that went to the penitentiary and came back home, he became a sheik. He became a sheik because he turned from his evil ways. And when he turned from his evil ways, Allah came to him. Because, see, in silent meditation, Jesus sat beside a flowing spring, and it was a holy day. And everybody want to say that holy day was your Sabbath day. But we know those who call themselves Jew. I say call themselves Jew because when you look at that six-pointed star, and you say that that six-pointed star is the Star of David, that's disrespectful. Because we have right here the Star of David. Because we are the ancient Moabites, and David and Ruth was his grandmother. So this is the Star of Solomon. And if this is the Star of Solomon, it got to be the same Star of David, because David is Solomon's father. And when you begin to talk about the house of David, you're talking about a bloodline. When you begin to talk about the house of David, see, listen to this. It says, will you give him brief? the line genealogy through which Jesus came. And listen to the name. It says some of the great fathers through which Jesus came are Abraham, Boaz by Ruth, Jesse, King David, Solomon, Hezekiah, and Joseph by Mary. Now let me stop here, because I said when you give in brief, and then I say Joseph by Mary. So now if I'm giving in brief the line genealogy through which Jesus came, and I'm saying Abraham, Boaz by Ruth, Jesse, King David, Solomon, Hezekiah, something is wrong. Because chapter 1 tells us that man is the Lord of the plane of things made manifest. But it said man gave up his birthright just to gratify his lower self. So now we're looking at Jesus. We're looking at Jesus as being the Lord. And we're looking at Jesus as standing alone over there by himself. And what Jesus done, can't nobody else do but him. This is what they taught you. But Jesus said, what I've done, all men can do. And what I am, all men can be and greater. And when you look at your Moorish Holy Quran, it said the divine instruction from the holy prophet. So every Moorish American who found yourself and be born again, you are being divinely prepared too. So when it say the Lord is my shepherd, see, who are they talking about? The Lord is the prophet right now, even Jesus. But man is the Lord of the plane of things made manifest. You got to master this down here. You got to become the Lord of this down here. This is why Jew Ali brought us back the 18 years that's missing in our Holy Bible. I told you in the last lesson that they talked about Jesus when he was 12, and they don't talk no more about him until he's 33. And today, in the Moorish Science Temple is rare, you don't hear him talking about Jesus no more. All you hear him talking about is going down to the courthouse with a gun and telling the people to give them some paperwork. And you don't get back to heaven by going down there to get the paperwork. You get there by going into these literatures and opening up these doors, because each chapter is a chamber door. And it's a chamber door that you got to open. It's that every tub must stand on his own bottom, and every tongue must confess his own. So you're going to have to get into this. We talk about know thyself. Not know thyself, because man have two selves. But you got to know both yourselves, because you know which one to crush. No, but you always said we got to crush one and to tame the other to that purpose. And for what purpose was the Moorish Science Temple of America founded? For the uplifting of fallen humanity. And how did the prophet begin to uplift the Moorish Americans? By teaching them to be themselves. Now, I was asked a question. They said, man, who you with? I said, who I'm with? What do you mean who I'm with? I'm a Moorish American Muslim. Ain't but one person you could be with. Now, that's Allah and the prophet. Say, I'm not with nobody else. Now, a lot of people, and I want to teach this because you hear it on social media, a lot of people is running around talking about who got the right one, and ain't but one. Ain't but one. Ain't but one Moorish Science Temple of America. And guess what? Over the last 100 years, because I was in D.C., and in 2013, where it was 100 years when we was on the mall about the prophet. But let's look at this 100 years. There's been 1 million brothers and sisters that come into the Moorish Science Temple. And you might have a brother over here that somebody taught him under the resurrection. You might have a brother over here that was taught from this perspective. So you know what? At least we got somebody to know a little bit about the prophet. So we can't beat them up for how they come in the door, because you got to know from which you come to. So once you know this, then we can start looking at our literature, because the prophet did tell us that if there become agreement that cannot be settled by the heads, notify him at once. And you notify the prophet through the literature. And as you study And see, we ain't gonna never come together in unity until you give them through the Spirit of God. Because this is when, and only when, the perfume, the odors, and the true sensations is going to truly work. Because the law is in control. We don't run nothing. Everything that we do, everything that we move about, it's a law that's directing our force. And we don't understand that. So we get close to a law. And they say you meet him in the spirit of truth. That's how you meet a law. You meet him in the spirit of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And right now, I love her. I remember Austin Bay. She gone. I've been calling the name of brother, posted a picture. And she was talking about a lot of different things about the prophet. And she was saying that a lot of us say that we are with the prophet and we want to follow the prophet. But the only way that you can follow the prophet is to live according to your divine constitution and bylaw, because this is where the truth comes. All this stuff come out of Egypt. Noble Drew Ali tells us in our literature he's Professor Drew of the Egyptian Adab. Everybody wants to study what come out of Egypt except you and me. We don't want to study. The Greeks got it, and everybody else got it. Everybody else wants to study what come out of Egypt except you and me. Drew Ali even told us in his book here, he even told about the clothes that he wear. He said that. He talked about the clothes that he wear, and they said this was something that his forefathers gave him. Everything that he wore meant something. Everything that we do means something. Everything that Noble Drew Ali brought to us meant something. Even this, all teas and compound. Noble Drew Ali gave us this when he was here. And he told the brothers and sisters, he said, you take my compounds, this will clean you of anything that you wasn't born with. And I remember Lynch-Bey, old brother, he gone now, one of my brothers. He said, man, every morning I used to take this tea and oil and compound, just put it on my tongue and just move on, and he lived a good life. A lot of them brothers and sisters lived a long time because of what the prophet brought us. So we need to learn how to follow the prophet. We need to know how to study the lesson. Get out there. You don't need a Black Law Dictionary. I'm telling you that. Black Law Dictionary came about, I remember there was a brother, and he's a good brother, named Reynolds Hill. And the Sheik used to put me with him, and he always talked about some national things. And we had a mission to get with him. Now, they got a brother. They got a couple of brothers. They got a brother named him, and they got another brother. And all these brothers are sharp. These brothers know a lot about the Moorish Science Temple of America. But come on back home and teach this class. And you teach that class. But you got to do it in the Moorish Science Temple of America. You can't do it no other way. I was in the military. I was in the army. I was in Vietnam. You know, and they told me when I took a course, they said there's no flag right of the American flag. And I'm mad about it. I'm trying to look at it and see what this government talking about. But Drew Ali told us that what is our national name and what is our national decent name. Because Allah sent him. Allah sent him with the record to clean us up of all these things, and the only thing will hook us back up with the family of nations if we proclaim our nationality. Because once you proclaim your nationality, then they won't be able to give you something called civil rights. Civil rights is a non-political issue. Civil rights is not even an issue that you could take to the UN. What you talking about, man? Yeah, there was a brother named Malcolm Little. Malcolm went to the UN, and he went to the UN, and when he got there, he talked to a brother by the name of Youthon. And he said, Youthon, we want to bring the United States before the World Court and charge genocide because of what they're doing to us as a people. And Youthon told Malcolm, said, Malcolm, you're a powerful brother. He said, we honor you and you're putting a lot of work in. He said, but in order to take the United States before the World Court, you must represent a nation. And we already have a nation, we already have a representative for the United States. What nation do you represent? He said, I represent the black man. Said, come on, Malcolm, you acting crazy, man. Come on, Malcolm, you acting crazy. You know good and well, because at first you wasn't a black, but you was something else before you was that. So you know good and well that ain't no such thing as that. We talking about civil rights as a non-political issue. You trying to get on the agenda under civil rights, but that's not nothing but a granted privilege. Drew Ali told us about human rights. And once you proclaim your nationality and be who you were before the advent of slavery. Now let me tell you something else. We went in Spain. We went into Spain in 7-11. We gave Europe civilization. We stayed in Spain from 7-11 to 1492, even going over the world doing all that time. But guess what? When we went over the world and we gave the world this and we gave the world that, something else taking place now. What is taking place? It's taking place that we are not who our forefathers were. They took our nationality away. Look what Drew Ali said. See, because in our literature, in our Moorish Holy Quran, Drew Ali tells us right here that the nationality of the Moors was taken away from them in 1774, and the words Negro, black, and colored was given to the Asiatics of America who were of Moorish descent, because they honor not the principles of their mothers and fathers and strayed after the gods of Europe, of whom they knew nothing. But now in Act 6, Drew Ali say 1779, and lasted until 1865. So now somebody got a problem with that. They said Drew Ali said over here 1774, and over here he said 1770. Yeah, the reason why Noble Drew Ali said 1774 in our Moorish Quran and 1779 in our 101 questions is because these names, Negro, colored, and black, was given to us in 1774. But in 1774, the United States was not recognized as having its independence from the mother country, England. So it wasn't officially put on record until 1779 because the United States got their independence in 1776. So ain't no, it's just Drew Ali giving us all of the language because we've been battling this thing for a long time. So we're talking about nationality. Everybody have a nationality except you and me. All these Europeans that call themselves white, I bet everybody that call themselves white, that when St. Patrick's Day get here, you can't call them that. You can't call them that. You got to call them Irish because they say honor that father and that mother. And if they call themselves white, then they're not honoring their mother and they have no place on earth. Now they got something else. Not only is you black, you people of color now. And being that you're a people of color, that separates us 100%. I have two son-in-laws. Both of them were born in Africa. But our lessons that we have to teach is different. Because he has to teach from that perspective, and I have to teach from this perspective, but we are all one people. When you look at the brothers that's in Jamaica, and brothers from that diaspora, all them brothers are Moors. Now we talking about North, we talking about South, and we talking about Central America. And Noble Drew Ali said all of these are Muslims. All of these talking about Hagar, the seed of Hagar, because that too had a lot to do dealing with the Berlin Conference, because that was a Saudi Arabia. So that's one of the first places they went. But everybody knows that the original Arabians look like me. Everybody knows that the original anything that look like me, because Africa is the cradle of civilization. And you know what took place? We chumps, man. We let them take it. They came in there, hit me in my head, pop, knocked me out, and said, okay, now we're going to take it, and we'll take your name, we're going to make Jesus' face look like something else. But it's all right, because the law is leading on. And when the law is leading on, victory is sure. So what we have to do now, we have to proclaim our nationality. Because a nation without a nationality is just like a tree without roots. So as I was saying earlier, when you begin to talk about King James, Queen Isabella, Ferdinand, Vespucius, These are all the same dudes in this era of time that sat on the council that enslaved you and me, because Castile and Aragon, these two different kingdoms in Spain, when Isabella and Ferdinand hooked up, this is how they was able to defeat us. And you know one of the reasons why they were able to defeat us? Because it's right here with Drew Ali said, we as a clean and pure nation, descendants of the inhabitants of Africa, do not desire to do certain things. And we are designed to do certain things that the prophet told us that we shouldn't do. He said, give back to Caesar what belonged to Caesar. And you know what? One time, I heard the prophet say, give back to Caesar what belonged to Caesar. So I got with my man and we went over Vegas. And when we went over Vegas, I looked up and seen Caesar's palace. Now, Drew Ali just told me to give back to Caesar what belonged to Caesar, but I'm going up there in Caesar's palace. He just told me to leave it alone and get away from that Italian stuff, but I had to go through mental slavery. So what we need to do, we need to go into the wilderness for self-examination. We need to talk to ourselves. We need to go and ask ourselves some questions. And the first question, have I the strength to overcome and give my life a willing sacrifice for men? Because, see, many are called, but only a few chosen. And as we look around today and see all this national side, some are sent. And when you hear a person that don't talk to you about nationality and divine creed, which are those other 2/5 that make a whole, then they get some money. Because this is not what Noble Drew Ali bought. Noble Drew Ali bought, and the courthouse. We have a prophet, Noble Drew Ali, who was divinely prepared by the holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali. And he established the Moorish Science Temple of America in 1913 for the express and profound purpose of uplifting fallen humanity, teaching us those things necessary to make ourselves better citizens. So there ain't no need for Noble Drew Ali then. If you going down to the courthouse and tell the man that you want to proclaim your nationality, whoever's sending you down there is putting you back in slavery. Because ain't nobody going to tell you nothing that's going to be beneficial for you. That's why Allah sent Drew Ali to do it. And I'm meeting brothers and sisters every day. Talking about they went down to the courthouse and they got some paperwork and they don't even know the Moorish American prayer. See, years ago, when I first joined the Moorish Science Temple, when you met a Moorish American, because it's some brothers here, some people here that I took to Chicago with me. I took them to Chicago. We went up to there to the prophet's grave site and everything. And those that I took with me from here, you know, when I met with those brothers and sisters that I knew for long ago that was close to me, when I got them, I made sure they knew their Constitution. I made out of all the years they are, and they seen me doing it. I said, give me Act 1. Give me Act 3. And see, he gave me Act 7. And Act 7 and Act 6 is important. And listen to Act 6 right now. It's very important. They say it's the supernatural act, but Act 6 is just like Act 7. So here's Act 6, and here's Act 7. Act 6. With us, all members must proclaim their nationality. And we're teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed, that they may know that they are part and parcel of this said government, and know that they are not Negroes, colored folks, black people, or Ethiopians, because these names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery. But this is a new era of time now. And all men now must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live and the nations of the earth. This is the reason why Allah, the great God of the universe, ordained Noble Drew Ali the prophet to redeem his people from their sinful ways. The Moorish Americans are descendants of the ancient Moabites who inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. Now, this is one of the fifths. We had 2/5 because we were 3/5 and needed the other 2/5. And listen to this. This is for the husband, this is for the wife, and this is for the children to get the Spirit of God inside of you. And here it is now. Act 7. All members must properly attend their meetings and become a part and a posture of all uplifting acts of the Moorish Science Temple. Members must pay their dues and keep in line with all necessities of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Then you are entitled to the name of faithful. Husband, you must support your wife and children. Wife, you must obey your husband and take care of your children and look after the duties of your household. Sons and daughters must obey father and mother and be industrious and become a part of the uplifting of fallen humanity. All Moorish Americans must keep their hearts and minds pure with love and their bodies clean with water. This divine covenant from your holy prophet, Noble Jew Ali, through the guidance of his father, God Allah. So now, the prophet tells us, he said, husbands, you must support your wife and children. Now, what does that mean? You must make sure they got shoes on their feet and they got clothes, but it means something else too. When he said, husbands, you must support your wife and children, he's talking about supporting them with the truth. So if he tells you to support your wife with the truth, and then because she's putting that thing on you, you don't want to proclaim your nationality, because she don't want to claim her nationality. She just wants you over there, and she ain't going to come over there and support you. I was on the phone with a brother this morning telling me it's hard to get her in the temple. Well, stop demonstrating on her then. And then she'll come around, because you can't serve two masters at the same time. You got one household. And if you support your wife and children, and if you're in charge, she got to proclaim her nationality, because right now, your woman, the one that's going to bear your children, she's 3/5 of a man. She's 3/5 of a man because 2/5 are missing. And what are those 2/5? Nationality and divine creed. When I was a child, when there was a husband, if he went to church on Sunday, his wife was right there with him. If they had children, the children was right there with him. And these are things that we look at, because a house divided cannot stand. And see, for that cause, we're preparing ourselves to begin with our Father, God Allah. We must remember the mighty and great need for unity. We must remember the cause of our fall. And why is it so hard for this age to comprehend the resurrection of the dead? We say our religion is Islamism. See, now you got a faith too. See, our religion is Islamism. You talk more, but I don't know what your faith is, because I done met a lot of brothers and sisters who say they're more, but we don't even have the same faith. They don't even know anything about Noble Drew Ali. And the brother that was on the show last time, he said the reason why he came into the Moorish Science Temple of America, because the brother told him there was some benefits in it. Yeah, the benefit in it is you proclaiming your nationality and you hooking yourself back up with the family of nations, and you are honoring who Allah sent to redeem you from your sinful ways. That's the blessing that we got. You want $5 and you want $10 and you want to be able to pay a bill. That's why you join the Moorish Science Temple. This is not what this is about, because this is for you to worship under your own vine and fig tree. And when you talk about the vine and fig tree, you're talking about man and woman. That's what you're talking about. The vine and the fig. It's in the lessons that we pass out. So we got to be able to honor our Father. And you honor your Father by living according to your divine creed, your customs, your culture, your heritages, and your traditions. Something that was given to us by our forefathers. Our forefathers left these things with us. We have a history. We have a glorious history. We have a history that can't be told in words. Whenever we talk about Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, and Confucius, we're talking about our own, because when you look at Buddha in the Moorish Holy Quran, Jesus was around Vitapalius and a lot of other wise sages. And they told the man, he said, stand still and listen. Because this dude right here, talking about Jesus, say he is the Buddha of enlightenment. So he was teaching the Buddha. Now you know the Buddha is one that rises above the flesh. When you look at a Buddhist, he meditates. And through silent meditation, Jesus sat by a flowing spring. Jesus was the Buddha of enlightenment. Vitapalius said that the wisest of the Hindu, he said, listen to this brother, because this is the one, and this is the lesson that Jesus brought. This is the lesson that is taught in the Moorish Science Temple of America. A lot of people haven't taught that, because when you see people tell them who is right And who is wrong? You wrong and you ain't right. Because if you right, then get right. They got a song in the church. Get right with God and do it now down at the cross where it shed his blood. Get right with it. And you do that by teaching this everlasting gospel. But there's a method of application that you got to use to teach. We have tools of the workshop of the mind, where things are made of thought and where we build up character. When we talk about we building the temple of perfected man. So now we get ready to build a temple. So now in building this temple, we got a lot of tools. We got a lot of tools in front of us that we use to build the temple. Now I got a hammer and I got a plane. But I can't use the hammer when it's time to use the plane, and I can't use the saw when it's time to use the chisel. I got to use the proper tool at the proper time. So there's a method of application. I just lost my niece. And when I go to the ceremony, the homegoing, they ain't going to be in there dancing. They're going to be reading the ministry of death. But there's a ministry in there, and there's a ministry of death. One is physical, and one is spiritual. And that's what the book say. So when it say a ministry, the chapter 4 say ministry of death, talking about somebody passing physically and going on to another plane. But you also die spiritually. Going back to the lesson of Jesus and Nicodemus. He said you must be born again. And being born again, it don't mean going back to your mother's womb. See, you want to use that anyway because you're dirty and you're stinking. You just like a dog. You find a man that lick all on a woman and go on her vagina. That's a dog. You done took on somebody else's concept and out of the house. It say worship under your own vine and fig tree. Give that back to Caesar. Give that back. Take a law and the prophet and live your life. Think about Mary. And Mary was a good sister. Think about Elizabeth. Elizabeth was a good sister. You know, and they was killing their brother. I remember John the Baptist's father. That brother was doing such a great work, they were looking for him. They were looking for John the Baptist, and they went in the temple. And they seen his father, Zacharias. And they say, hey, Zach, come here, man. They say, where your son John at? I said, man, we don't know where he at. But they knew he's a part of the Essene brotherhood, so they knew he knew where he was. So they said, look here, man, when we get back, if you don't tell us where John is, man, we're going to put that thing on you. So they came back a couple of weeks ago and said, where John at? He said, I don't know. They killed Zacharias right in the temple. They killed him right in the temple because they didn't get the information. But chapter 4 say when John, when John was 12, his mother died, and neighbors laid her body in the tomb near to Zacharias' tomb. Zacharias was his father. So when you begin to talk about John the Baptist, Jesus' cousin, all of these lessons from David, Lot, has a hookup in the Moorish Science Temple of America. We are taught all these lessons in our upper room. I say upper room, I don't even say the chamber, because a lot of us think that we're in the chamber, but we're in a den. And if you're talking about national and not national and international, or national and divine, if you ain't talking about both of them, you're in the den. Because you're still 3/5 of a man. And if you take the national side, you're 4/5 of a man. And you can walk around with a gun and all this kind of foolishness, and that's not what you all bought us. So what I'm doing today is around my birthday. My birthday here tomorrow. And I'm trying to teach a lesson because when Jesus was teaching his disciples at the Last Supper, he fed them something. And what did he feed them? He fed them food for thought. So today, I brought you in to this Last Supper. And I gave you a lot of food for thought. I called a lot of names out. I showed my birth certificate. I talk about where the Negro River was. And we talk about a lot of things that we get into in the Moorish Science Temple of America. And because Juali tells us where things are made of thought and where we build up character. And here in the Moorish Science Temple of America, this is what we're doing. We're trying to become better people. We try to become upright citizens. We're trying to learn to love instead of hate. And when we talking about love, we're not talking about the love that begin in bed and end in bed. We're not even talking about that. We're talking about divine love. See? Because we're talking about a divine prophet. We're talking about a holy and divine prophet sent to us. Whenever a nation is in need for a prophet, Allah will send one. And Allah had to send one to us in this era of time. And when he sent one in this era of time, because we lost our nationality over there, when we came out of Spain, that's what Allah sent him to give back to us is our nationality, because the Moors were nowhere. Nikki Giovanni, when she heard about the Moors, she asked the question. She said, where are the Moors today? Are the Moors distinct? Where are those people that called themselves Moors that was in Spain from 711 to 1492? They said, look at your birth certificate. If you look at your birth certificate, if you got Negro on there, if you got colored on there, if you got black on there, if you got Afro-American on there, then you are one of those Moors. You are one of those that was put in slavery. And you are a slave. Because if you call yourself black, if you call yourself colored, if you call yourself Negro, then you are in slavery. You at least said mental slavery, which you now have, need each and every one of you who think that your conditions can be better. He said this is a field open, the strong men and women to uplift the nation and take your place in the affairs of men. He said if the European and other nations are helping him, why not you? It is your problem, the Negro problem being solved only as it can, and that is through the Moorish national and divine movement. If you have a nation, you must have a free national name in order to be recognized by this nation as an American citizen. This is what was meant when it was said, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. Happy birthday, Lynch-Bey. In conclusion, I'd like to recite the Moorish American prayer. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation by night and by day through his holy prophet, Drew Ali. Amen. Wade in the water, wade in the water, Muslim, wade in the water. You are in trouble, the water.